Stop bar now.
I don't want video on.
It's a total.
That's great. Thank you.
The most underserved. The deal is going to be. They quick to talk about, oh, black and brown people, they be.
I'm not sure.
I'd like to have a little bit of council business if you wanted to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our May 27th, 2025 City Council work session agenda. Let the record reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Chair White, who should be joining us shortly. And Councilmember Blair is online. Would you like to say hello, Councilmember Blair?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, he's talking, but we can't hear him, so.
Okay. Well, first thing.
Give him a minute.
Okay, we'll give you a minute.
Get straight out.
We're pausing.
Geez, hello, check 1, 2.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right, Bart, we got you now.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I'm not there.
Hey, Bart. Okay, so first thing, we're going to turn the time to Janine Eller-Smith for some council business, since we don't have our chair with us yet.
Yeah, Marcia, Chair White actually reminded me that the National League of Cities annual conference is going to be here it's going to be in Salt Lake City this year.
Oh.
November 20th through the 22nd. That is the week before Thanksgiving. They do have an early discount for if anybody's interested in going. It is really good opportunity for elected officials to get together. I've learned for staff, there are other conferences that are better for training for staff, but this is actually really good for elected officials. And so if you're interested in going, we can sign you up. If we get 5, we can get a 6th one for free, which is about $750 value. So, and because you would be close, you wouldn't get a hotel, but you would get per diem and mileage if you decided to, if you're interested in doing that. So maybe just give that some consideration. Marcia is going to sign up. And I think some staff are going to go. So please take a look at that and see if you might be interested in doing that.
Do you want us to just communicate back to you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
The National League. Yeah, that is it. So we started.
Yep, we've started.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna move the meeting to 4:15.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't know what's next.
Well,
We have
I just,
reviewed
we had,
or
Oh,
anything,
okay.
so.
Cool. All right. Well, there's not much of the agenda.
No, there's no agenda, so
Mhm.
we're just going to start, I suppose.
I think so. We obviously know tonight's going to be a little bit of a different scenario for us. We've not tried this before, and hopefully it will work out. I think we should probably put a time limit on it, maybe an hour and a half, kind of see if we can. You guys have an idea of as far as an end time? We didn't put an end time. Do you? An hour.
I know the format. Somebody was asking me. I was like, I'm not what the format will be. If you just get to ask questions, will we have any displays or
yeah, what we've done is set up 4 different stations with different departments. Each of the departments will have a representative at their station, and there will also be a staff person, a council staff person there to kind of take notes. If there's comments from the public, requests, recommendations for change, that kind of thing. So we've got 2 set up in the chamber, and then there will be 2 out here. And I'm not sure where they are. So do you know which ones are where, Glenn?
Public safety
police and fire are on the west side in Chambers, CED and RDA are on the east side in Chambers, and then public services is on this side, and then management services is on the other side, on the south side in the hallway.
So we have boards set up for that. There are QR codes that they can link to if they want to take a look at packet information for each of the different departments. We heard through the grapevine that somebody was kind enough to put some flyers on cars at Mount Ogden Golf Course yesterday. Wasn't us, so.
Were they accurate?
I haven't seen them.
Oh,
Just heard that they were there. I don't know.
It looked like it was an announcement that you had put together.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Maybe they just copied something from our social media or something. But I know that Emily Beely, one of the residents, has been really interested in the budget, spent
Yep.
some time with staff, both administrative and council staff. And so I suspect that she's the one that did that, but I'm not
She
sure.
volunteered to roll
Yeah.
up her sleeves. Yep, she did. Sounds like it might be up her alley.
And it's, so I was asking Janine too, if things come up that we maybe should take note of so that the rest of the council members, you know, like if we're at public services and somebody's asking a question at management services to make sure that we're being able to relay that information to all of us.
So are we assigned a spot, or are we roving kind of with the people?
Oh, that's a good point. Had you assigned council members? a
Didn't
spot?
do an assignment, just if you want to pick a spot, or if you want to rove, you can do either one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Usually no one shows up, so it'll be fun if somebody shows up.
Yeah, we might be done at 5 after
Yeah.
7.
Nah.
you can talk to one another.
So,
Talk amongst yourself.
Yeah, we'll try it. I mean, we've tried social media posts, we've tried videos, we've tried a lot of things in the past. So we don't usually get the yelling and screaming until after we pass the budget, so that's usually the time we hear about it. Let's see if we can get the word out before then. That's all we have. That's from 7, and I think, you know, let's put a time frame on, like, kind of look at it around 8:15 and see if there's hundreds still here or no one.
Well, that'll probably dictate what happens,
Yeah.
is how many people are still here.
That's what I'm thinking.
We are going to put up a slide on the screen in there that says 8:30, so 7 to 8:30. With the idea that if we need to, and there's lots of people, we might make an announcement at like 8:15 to say, need to wrap up. And obviously, you know, don't want to kick them out, but, you know, just kindly remind them that.
Well, Brennan has a song he can play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little traveling music.
All right. Is Bart online?
He is
Yes.
online.
With that, then let's move to our work session agenda and, oh, there he is.
Yes.
Deputy Chief. How are you? I thought I saw you as I walked in the door, but then, you know, y'all start to look the same. We got Blue, blue, blue. Right?
Well, good afternoon. I here on behalf of Chief Stubbe today, who is out of state on vacation with his family. So he was disappointed that he couldn't be here, and
I'll bet.
I knew that you would think I was joking, but he legitimately wanted to be here. So I had a strong arm to tell him he needed to go on his vacation. But okay, so just put together a presentation in response to the questions that you guys had asked of each of the department directors. And so I'm going to just go through this and answer those questions in the order that they were presented. And feel free to stop me at any time with any questions. Wanted to start today by introducing and discussing our department's mission statement, which was recently updated by Chief Stubbe, myself, and the command staff here or at the police department. This was done not because our old mission statement was deficient, but instead because as the Mayor Dodalski has introduced his pillars of human success and CAO Brown has also indicated that those are really the ideals that we collectively as a city government are aiming to achieve together. And so we wanted a mission statement that kind of pushed us in that pathway, while also setting the tone for Chief Subi's position and his plan moving forward for the police department. I'll just read it here quickly. The Ogden Police Department is dedicated to protecting our citizens, preserving public peace, and defending the rule of law. We do so by serving with integrity, striving for excellence in all that we do, and relentlessly pursuing and holding accountable those who threaten the safety of our community. With the Constitution as our compass, we pledge to serve and protect all who live, work, and recreate in Ogden City. One of the things that we really care about at the Ogden Police Department is excellence. I'm biased to believe that we're the best police department in the state, but we truly shoot for excellence in everything that we do. And this mission statement tries to encapsulate that a bit. One of the first questions that was asked was to talk about the top 3 accomplishments that we had in fiscal year 25. I'm going to discuss those in greater detail as in the next few slides. But those are going to be, I'm going to cover them there: crime reduction, our commitment to training, and the service that we have provided to the community. You have probably grown accustomed to hearing this theme of crime reduction, and that's not a bad thing, but we couldn't, as we were trying to decide what our top accomplishments were, we just couldn't get past, again, the reduction in crime that we are seeing year over year. I know that you've heard this. Know that you've heard it repeatedly over the last decade. In 2016, we started a downward trend that has persisted year over year until now. Even in 2024, we're continuing to see significant, not insignificant, reductions in crime. So this is our Part 1 crimes. Part 1 crimes include problematic categories of crime, including homicide, robbery, sexual assault, aggravated assault, arson, burglary, vehicle theft, and larceny. We report based on number of incidents of those things per 1,000 people in our population. Oh shoot, I'm moving forward here. Is there a mouse here, Brandon?
That clicker should work for you. So the right arrow on it.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, and can I scroll through the notes? I guess.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a mouse here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I didn't know what you meant. That's my fault.
Okay, so for context, I just want to tell you, in 2016, we recorded 53.1 Part 1 crimes per 1,000 residents. That has, like I mentioned just now, dropped every year since. And then in 2024, we recorded 23.6 per that same 1,000 residents. That is nearly cut in half in just that 8 years' time. We are on pace through April of this year, January through April, to once again see a significant annual decline. We're currently 14%, under where we were at this same time last year. So it keeps going down. We keep expecting, I don't know how low we can go. 0 is maybe where we're headed to. And that appears, that's what we're certainly going to try to get there. But it's just something that we are proud of at this point, that it continues to go down. NIBRS is also a different kind of reporting than Part 1 crimes. NIBRS breaks its crimes categories into persons crimes, property crimes, and crimes against society. You shouldn't be surprised here to see that even in these metrics, we continue to see significant declines. And persons is the most significant for us in a NIBRS reporting. And so we're happy to report that so far in 2025, we, compared to the same time as last year, we're now down 17.1% in our crimes against persons. We also have seen a reduction, not as significant, but still 7.5% in crimes against property. And again, that's compared within the same time of last year. Finally, this crimes against society, I want to talk a little bit about it because you'll notice that this kind of departs from the pattern. We've increased here. You need to know that crimes against society include crimes like prostitution, gambling, pornography, criminal weapons possession, and then drug possession and drug paraphernalia possession. The reason that's important, because this is the category where good proactive police work actually penalizes us on this chart. A lot of times, if we're not out proactively policing, making enforcement stops, crimes like possession of drugs or drug paraphernalia will go undiscovered. We don't do that at the Ogden Police Department. Chief Subi is a highly proactive chief. And as a result, we are seeing year over year an increase in this. And we know that this, by the statistics, that this is due to our proactive policing. And the reason we know this is because of these 910 crimes against society that we have logged this year, 821 were drug offenses, so drug possession or drug paraphernalia. So 90% of our societal crimes reported here are the result of proactive policing. We could sit on the side of the road between calls for service and not do proactive policing, and this number would plummet. But that certainly is not. It wouldn't solve the problem. The problem would be there. It would just go undetected. So I just wanted to explain that there, why we have that rise. We're perfectly happy to see, I mean, not happy, but this is one of those where we do want to see, we can understand at least the increase.
Is there anything in particular that you can point to that the police department has employed to reduce part one crimes and crimes against persons? Is there some is there something you've done that's caused those numbers to drop?
Absolutely. So probably beginning around the 2016, we've taken, one of the themes you'll see during this presentation is just, we want to give you a good return on investment on the money that's spent by you and the taxpayers here in Ogden City. And so you are going to hear about our homeless mitigation programs. You're going to hear about our state leading real-time crime center that tracks criminals and predicts crimes and gives us the opportunity to do predictive policing. You're going to hear about our crime reduction unit that is solely out there looking proactively for these criminal or high-risk criminal offenders, things like that. So we have a multifaceted approach. We have a dedicated gang unit. We have a dedicated strike force. All of those things, we're just not sitting back and responding to calls and investigating crimes. And so I think of all of the things that we can attribute it to, it's the collective of those things.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, can I ask a question? Also,
Yeah.
So we had a survey come back that talked about feeling safe in our community, and that was one of the areas where we kind of scored low on that survey. And so we're talking about putting together like the flash vote to maybe understand why people were feeling unsafe. It's interesting when we look at these statistics and see that it is, you know, half the crime from 2016 till now. We're at basically half of that. I'm just curious if you could comment on that as to I mean, is it just we're not doing a good job marketing that? Or I mean, I don't know if I even know what my question is on this, other than it's just an interesting thing for us to see that feeling safe in our community is a high concern, and there are members of our community that don't feel safe. And so I'm just trying to understand why that might be the case, given this information.
Yeah, one of the things that you've probably heard Chief Subi say repeatedly is we're always battling the perception of crime here in Ogden. For whatever reason, this reputation for high crime levels in Ogden has persisted, despite, like you just pointed out, a 50% drop over 8 years. One of the things that we heard about this survey, and one of the things that we got some feedback on, and you guys asked us, how would we posit some questions to kind of dig into that deeper? And one of those things is we want to know, is it a perception thing or is there a reality? And so incorporating some questions about, have you witnessed a crime? Have you actually been party to a crime? Have you been victim to a crime? And separate those things from how you feel would be instructive for us, I think.
Okay.
So let me just real quick on that follow-up question then is, where are we compared to other communities? I mean, is that what they're comparing it to, do you think, or could that be part of it?
In terms of the perception question or the crime?
The crime itself.
In many cases, we're outperforming the averages nationally and in the state. I don't have the specific numbers. I'll be happy to get those for you, but I do know that we're outperforming.
Can I just follow up as well and just commend the police department for the outreach and the efforts that I've witnessed in terms of, the night out against crime, the coffee with the cop, there seems to be a lot of initiatives going to try and bridge that gap and create those relationships with the community. So I think that sort of thing is probably going to help more than anything, and maybe reducing some of that perception, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, certainly. And you've participated in our events like the Citizens Police Academy and those kinds of things. And yes, those are precisely the types of events that we're hosting for that reason.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you said that you're doing more proactive policing, I mean, I can guess what I think that might be, but do you mind describing that in case the residents don't know what that means?
Yeah, so for proactive policing, we just want our officers to, in their uncommitted patrol time, so the time that they're not spent responding for calls for service from our citizens, we want them to be out with a purpose of deterring and detecting crime. And so that might be some traffic enforcement. That might be developing long-term investigations on problem homes or properties, things like that. So, stopping and talking with people and pedestrians, and so those are kinds of the proactive things that we're doing. Okay, is everybody? We're good to move on. Okay, our second accomplishment is our training. We're particularly proud of our training bureau. We have a unit dedicated that's comprised of a lieutenant, a sergeant, and an officer, a full-time officer that manages all of the training for all of the sworn officers at our police department. In 2024, we logged 15,825 hours, which equates to 110 hours on average per officer. Just so you know, we're statutorily required to receive 40 hours of training, so we're receiving about 3 times what we're actually required to obtain every year per officer. Some of the things that we're doing: mental health and crisis response, autism awareness, de-escalation and emotional intelligence, arrest control and defensive tactics, firearms, internal affairs, criminal law and legislations, and leadership development. These are all things that are critical for our officers every day, the things that they're going to run into from the start of the shift to their end. And so we have a wide variety of things that we have to make sure that we're focused on. And so 110 per officer is one of the highest that we've seen in a while. Service delivery, and when I say service, specifically what our entire purpose is. In fiscal year 25 so far, so in the 10 months through April, we have responded on 42,595 calls for service. That's an average daily call for service response of 140. And when we talked about the proactive enforcement, so the proactive activities, like we talked about, traffic stops or pedestrian contacts or building checks and things like that, we have done 36,696. That's an average of 120. So between those two things on a daily basis, we're averaging as a police department about 260 of those contacts. It doesn't stop there. However, in terms of our patrol officers, we also, as you know, have a detective bureau, because sometimes we need to follow up on cases that can't be resolved with our initial response. In fiscal year 25, so in 10 months, we've signed 1,516 cases for investigation. That's about, on average, 112 per detective per year. And in addition to our follow-up investigations, we also have committed through our victim advocacy group. We have 2 wonderful employees who focus solely on victim advocacy. They proactively research throughout all of the cases that come in a day. They identify the victims that potentially need support. They reach out to those victims and offer support. Average daily victims that they're serving, services that they're providing about 5 per day, per work day for our victim advocacy group.
Chair, can I ask a question about the responses?
You don't have to ask.
The complaints that I hear from people aren't about Part 1 crime and about those kind of things. They're about, oh, my car got broken into and I called the police and they didn't show up for 10 hours. And I know there's not the big things, but they are concerns to the citizens. What is the strategy to deal with some of that stuff?
Yeah, we certainly hope that like a 10-hour response, I would think that that would be.
I just came up with that number.
Okay,
I don't know
yeah,
what it really is, but
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, so certainly you can see here that we stay busy with 42,000
of course.
calls in 10 months. And our strategy is when we run into those into those response times problems, we have really tried to dig down into the numbers and shift and formulate our actual assigned shifts in the morning, in the evening, and at night to cover the times when we're the busiest. We have, and I don't have them with me here. I should have put them in here, but we have some impressive response times. And so I was just about to say that I'm sure there have been some calls for service that have held for longer than we want, but our calls for our response times are impressive. And so we hope that that's the exception and not the rule. And I don't know if that answers your question.
It kind of does. I think from what I understand, you've got a lot of opportunities for people to fill out a complaint online and get a police report so that they can talk to their insurance company, which is really what people want. They want to be able to make their insurance claim or whatever it was. Those I think are helpful. I'm not sure if somebody's house was vandalized. I think they really do want to see an officer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, so we have some CSOs at our front desk who you can walk in and file a police report if it's a crime that's not occurring or there's not a suspect. You can come in, like you mentioned, we do have our online reporting. We wish it was utilized a little more than it is. We've, like you just said, we've made it easy so you can get on there and get a case number if that's what you want. But yes, anything like vandalism where you're feeling victimized, we're going to come to your home. We're going to be face to face with you. So
thank you.
One of the things I just wanted to mention when we talked about those encounters, if you took the calls for service and you took the proactive, the estimated encounters, I'm going to make a conservative estimate. The sum of those numbers is a little over 79,000. I'm conservatively saying that each one of those potential contacts is with one officer and one person. That's rarely the case, especially on calls for service. For example, if you had a party with 20 people that you had to respond to as an officer. I just wanted to give you some perspective on where we're at with our use of force. In fiscal year 25 so far, we have 56 incidents of use of force, which when you compare it to how often we are making police citizen contacts, it's really a low number. I just want to get down here to my notes real quick. So 79,000 contacts, 56 uses of force. That's a rate of 0.07. So roughly 7 out of every 10,000 police citizen contacts is going to be ending in a use of force. And the reason I brought this up is because I know there's been some comments in council recently by some in public comment about our use of force. And I kind of wanted to just get it on record here that we really feel like we train to de-escalate and have emotional intelligence. And when we're talking about 7 out of every 10,000 police citizen encounters ending in the use of force, I think that that's something that needs to be noted. Now, you might say, well, of course, somebody's calling for a keep the peace. That shouldn't end in the use of force. When we pull the numbers of arrests or where we're going to be charging somebody with a misdemeanor crime, an interaction where you can expect or anticipate conflict, that goes up to about 1%. So 1 in every 100 arrests we're making actually involves the use of force.
Deputy Chief, is it safe to say that these ones that end up in a use of force, they've resisted or not followed the instructions of the officer or some other way to be combative, that they've been started by the perpetrator rather than the police officer?
Yeah, and that is when we talk about these 56 uses of force, it's easy to just go, well, man, maybe we should have 0 uses of force. But what I need to make clear, and thank you for the question, is we have very strict guidelines on use of force and a use of force continuum that we have to study and train on. And we don't introduce force unless force is necessary. And you're right. If we're facing resistance when we need to make an arrest, if we're facing an assailant who wants to do us harm, that's when use of force comes in. If somebody's fleeing and we need to stop them by force, that's these types of uses of force. And every single use of force goes to our Internal Affairs Bureau to be reviewed independently and a disposition received on it.
Thank you for that answer.
I have a question too, please.
Yes.
So not looking at use of force, but looking at how you de-escalate some situations. And I'm going to just use an example, and it's not a real example, but let's say you pull someone over to cite them or pull them over and cite them, and they resist or they escalate the situation up a little bit. Are officers trained to start to try to de-escalate those situations and those encounters that are just simple encounters? So I'm not talking about a use of force particularly. I just wondering about the training and what officers do when they experience a lot of resistance from someone who's cited for a citation or something. Am I clear?
Yeah, you're absolutely clear. I wish we could say if our officers weren't so highly trained, how many of these would have ended in the use of force because they didn't properly de-escalate. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that out of these 79,000 encounters, there's a lot more than 56 where people want to escalate with the officer. A lot more. And so we do, heavy emphasis on de-escalation, heavily emphasis on emotional intelligence. Our guys deal with this every day. Like, you're probably familiar with the First Amendment auditors that we see. These people are looking for a confrontation. They're looking to get a rise out of our officers for their own benefit. And I think our guys are doing fantastic at managing those things. So this happens, the traffic stop thing. I mean, that's very frequent. That's every day that somebody wants to escalate a traffic stop. And it just never gets there because of our training.
Here's a plug for the Citizens Police Academy. You go, when you hear all those types of circumstances, you get in the mind of the officers and what they're thinking and all that. It's a great opportunity if you have a chance to do that, because you'll see all the different layers that go on in there. So it's a great place to see that.
I was not good at patting people down to find their weapons.
Going on ride arounds with the police.
Right along, yeah.
You get to see how I'm kind of amazed at the skill level that you guys have. When things start to get a little testy, you guys can calm it right down. I wouldn't have that skill probably. It's pretty great to watch you guys.
We agree. No, I just tease.
What are you saying?
Well, my question comes from the fact that I was last month pulled over, and I did not think that I had violated the law. And so I questioned the officer's his assessment of the situation. And I was very impressed with how he handled the situation. I was not combative. I did not use any force. I didn't cause any force, but I was very impressed at how he tried to de-escalate the situation and how he kind of turned it in sideways a little bit. But anyway, I just, I wondered about that because I was initially kind of shocked at how, with my resistance, he raised his level of resistance to some degree, but then he just de-escalated it too. And I just thought, well, that was impressive, even though I felt I'm innocent of what had happened there. I won't go into any more details. I've been paying the fine because I don't want to.
I'll see if you got the ticket.
Well, I did. I got the ticket, and I paid the fine because I didn't want to go to court to dispute the thing. And so I just thought I'd be a reasonable citizen and be responsible for my actions. Which, anyway, but I'm
glad that went that way.
But it was quite an interesting encounter. It really was. I just was very impressed with how the officer handled it.
Did you get his badge number?
Indeed, I have the whole documentation, but I've just let it go. It's not worth pursuing.
Continuing on with this service delivery, I just wanted to point out that our homeless mitigation team is just doing fantastic work. In the fiscal year 25, they have put 74 individuals into homes that previously did not have housing. In addition to that, they've made 2,667 mitigation contacts. These are efforts on proactive efforts on their part to reach out to individuals experiencing homelessness in our community and attempting to assist them. As a result of those contacts, there are 504 individuals currently receiving ongoing services from our homeless mitigation team. And then, we talked about that survey, and I think this is a good point I think this kind of goes into that a little bit. One of the things that we really care about is professionalism and emotional intelligence, like we've talked about, and competence. So one of the tools that we use is Spider Tech Survey. And when you are involved in a call for service and we have your contact information, after the officer's interaction with you is over, you'll receive a survey that you can take, a browser-based survey, and you can answer questions related to professionalism, competence, and overall impression. One of the things that we're really proud of is our scores year to year are remaining consistent in that 4.6 range. And you got to understand that a lot of times these surveys are going out to people who did not have a totally favorable interaction with a police officer. Maybe they didn't get an outcome that they were looking for, or somebody was being held accountable for something that they'd done. But still, we have these surveys from people who have actually interacted with our officers. And so if you extrapolate this number out to a grade, I mean, we're getting A's. And this is just really, we think, telling of what our guys are doing. I want to move on to cost and efficiency measures. I know we're going a little long, so I'll try to hurry through this for you. But we did a software and technology audit this year. So basically, we just worked with IT to look at everything that we were paying for on the software front or any kind of technological service that we were paying for. We found and eliminated approximately $25,000 in our IT related costs on services that we just no longer needed. Some other efficiency measures we've taken. We have a GovQA and a BuyCrash software that are heavily invested in now. GovQA is an opportunity, or it is a online platform where people can request records. These have typically been handled or processed manually, and when we are facilitating these records requests, they can be anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. With this automated system, we're estimating in its first year, we saved about 2,000 staff hours just by going to this system. BuyCrash is similar. It is for all of the records requests related to traffic accidents. The same thing. This really automates the process so that our 1 to 2 hours that would be sent by a staff member are saved. And so in the first year of BuyCrash, we think between 12 and 1,800 hours have been saved. We also have incorporated some translation services in our front lobby at the PD. Traditionally, if we had somebody who needed translation services, if we had somebody that could communicate, we'd have to bring them in from the field and do it that way. We now have some translation devices that can do any language that you would want, and we use those for communication purposes. We have added a new homelessness service advocate to bring it up to 3 this year. And then we did a police department budget consolidation. So essentially, until now, we've had a bunch of different accounts. And really, there's only 1 or 2 of us that are running the budget at the police department. There's no need to have all of our divisions and our bureaus broken out into specific accounts. So we've consolidated everything so we can keep closer eye on where we're spending our funds. Immediate challenges in 2025, we've seen a significant increase in public demonstrations from local political activist groups. These have been entirely peaceful, but despite that, as a police department, we're not going to get caught flat-footed. Whether there's 20 people or 200 people, we have a certain level of preparation that goes into these events, planning, operational or manpower, staffing, those kinds of things. So we have taken proactive steps to mitigate the risks that are typically associated with public demonstration. Again, not in these cases. We've had 5 this year from a particular group. We've developed a relationship with the event organizers. We have professional communication with them, and we hope that, and we have been using that relationship to kind of help us work through these. We know that they're planning another 2 within the next couple of months. And so in terms of immediate challenges, this is something that we're dealing with right now. Special events, we had 52 in 2024, 114 total days spent working on special events. Events like the Winter Running Series, Ogden Marathon, Farmers Market, Pops Concert, Pioneers Day Rodeo and Parade, the Ogden Marathon, Christmas Village, Shop with a Hero, some of these kind of events that you mentioned that we're actually going out and trying to engage with the community. And then we've had a recent concerning trend in audio pedestrian accidents. We had 85 accidents in 2024, 5 which were fatal. That was up from 61 the year prior. And so that was a very significant increase. We've had 28 accidents so far in 2025. So it looks like we're trending back down a little bit, but we're very much keeping our eye on it. One of the questions you ask is, what are we doing to address our immediate challenges? We did an extensive study on auto pedestrian accidents, locations, days, times, weather, lighting conditions, road conditions, age of the driver and pedestrian, or the gender, who was at fault. What we found is there's just nothing that we can point to where there is a clear correlation about why these are happening. What I can tell you anecdotally is probably our number of drivers that are distracted is skyrocketing. Our mobile speeds are getting faster. Our social media apps are getting more engaging. And I think, and this doesn't solve anything, but that, if you ask me right now, that's what I think it would be. But what we're doing in response to this, we have aggressive education enforcement plans in place. We've already done several targeted operations at crosswalk details, crosswalk safety. And then also we're using social media to try to educate the public on why, when, and where this is happening to try to avoid it. Long-term challenges. Space at the Franklin Public Safety Center has been a challenge, and it's really starting to increase. And in 2000, when we had the building was built, we had 147 department employees. We now have 193. It's a 31% increase, so space is limited. Our officer wellness initiatives, our current contract is at $185,000 annually. This is the opportunity that officers have to go seek therapy through a group that we're contracted with. That expires in July 2027. We're expecting that the costs are going to go up. And the problem with that is more than 80% of our police department we don't get any information, but we do know that more than 80% have taken advantage of this particular benefit that's there and available to them. So we know it's something that's beneficial and very much needed. The other issue that we're really concerned with is our civilian staff are currently not eligible. They have access to those kinds of services through the city's benefits, but in terms of our internal police department, we just haven't extended that to our civilian staff, even though they go through a lot of the same things that our officers are going through. Some other just ever increasing costs. Cameras and ALPR. ALPRs are our automatic license plate readers. The cost for digital evidence storage, advancements in AI and how that's going to be utilized in law enforcement, and other emerging technologies that are every day. There's something new that as a law enforcement agency you can invest in to help you meet your goals.
Are we, the space for the cameras, the video, are we paying for that as well? So.
Yeah.
The body cameras.
Yeah. So actually that's a really expensive portion of our contract. And I'm going to talk about Axon's contract here in a second, but yes, we do have to pay.
Got it. You can keep going. Sorry.
No worries. And then also it's always a competitive marketplace. I just want to tell you how impactful the staffing study had been, the recent adjustments in the prior years. Very thankful, and I'll show you exactly what that's done for us here in a minute. But I can't stress enough also the COLA and how not getting to where we've been in the past will be for our ability to staff our police department. We've made two new position requests. The first was marketing and communications specialist. We were requesting to convert an existing police records position to the marketing and communications specialist. Previously, we've had a lieutenant trying to manage his own job, plus all of the social media engagement that we want. We do kind of have a good presence on Facebook. It's just not where we want to be. We know that there's other platforms where we can communicate and message a younger demographic, and we want to try to exploit that. And then again, the importance of beating the perception. We really think that somebody that's fully dedicated full-time to this for us would be very helpful. And then an HSA supervisor position. So we do have 3 HSAs currently. We'd like to convert one of the positions to a supervisor position. As I mentioned, they're doing a lot of work, and it's getting to the point where some supervision in that role would be incredibly helpful for us. Because of the conversions, it would only be about $15,000 a year difference for us for the marketing position, and about $11,000 a year different for the HSA supervisor. Here's some of our significant line items increases. Weber Metro Crime Scene Investigation Services, that's going up. The contract is going up by $51,000. Just so you know, we can't replicate the services that they're providing us, at least for not what we're paying. They do our fingerprint collection, DNA collection, all of our evidence collection, processing on major crime scenes. They do our evidence grade photography, bullet trajectory analysis, blood spatter analysis. So they do provide things that we just can't replicate.
Who all uses that service?
All of the agencies in Weber County.
So are they all getting an increase then?
Yes. Yep. So their costs for doing business are going up. Yep. So we get charged relative to our usage, and so our increase is going to be higher. But yes.
That's a lot. That's even more.
These are just costs we can't control. The animal shelter is going up by nearly $90,000, and there's just no way to get around this. Again, we're bringing in 4 to 5 animals a day to the shelter, more than 1,000 animals a year. So they're providing us services that we don't have the capacity to do ourselves at this point for the cost that we're paying, even though that cost is exponentially increasing. We're told that things are changing and that we can expect some stabilization, but this is what we're expecting for this coming year.
Do they justify the increase somehow? Do they say what expenses of theirs have gone up, or why it's going up so much?
Yeah, because of how busy they are, a lot of what they say is that their staffing needs are too low, and they're not keeping up with other shelters. Davis County shelter was mentioned, but it's primarily staffing for them.
Another question. Do you know how much of a percentage Ogden Cities is of whoever uses that service?
It's per usage. So our percentage is in line with how many animals we bring in relative to everyone else. I'll get you that number. I don't have it off the top of my head.
That would be really interesting to me. I mean, it's been happening a couple of years, and I always
One house alone.
Yeah, we just kind of jolt.
Yeah.
I want to get the
Yeah.
increase, and
Yeah.
I'd like to know if
So we just need to drop them off in North Ogden.
yeah, we just need to get some thinking done on this, see if we can solve it.
Right, so I mean, I get that is a good point. So I mean, is this gonna be an annual increase next year as well, or are we stabilized, or?
It was a pretty good increase last year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, it was. There's been some back to back. At this point, we're stable as far as what they're telling us right now for operations. So we've discussed potentially, when we got these numbers, we discussed what does it look like. We studied what it would look like for us to to replicate this, and we just didn't think that we could do it for the cost that we would face, the immediate costs. I do want to point out this travel education training account increase, 112,000. So as you know, and Marsh, I believe you asked this question last
Sorry, I don't remember.
last week.
Oh, last
Yeah,
week,
no,
I was like,
yeah.
well, I still don't remember.
I was just watching. So we have traditionally, as you know, been afforded some of the unspent payroll dollars to help offset our budget needs for operational expenses. We are no longer doing that. So we went back into the 3-year study and found that we're spending about 206,000 on training per year. So a little more than $1,000 per employee per year. This will bring our current budget up to that 206 figure so that we can, moving forward, not have to count on these unspent payroll dollars. Typically, when we go over what we currently have budgeted, which is about 94,000, that's coming out of our other operational accounts to fund that training and education. So we're hopeful that with this increase, we're going to no longer have to rely on that at the end of the year.
Great.
And then our Axon Services contract is increasing pretty significantly, and I'm going to talk to you about exactly what's happening. So our current contract with Axon, that's our body cameras and our tasers. That's also our interview rooms and all of the cameras that are outfitted in our interview rooms. It is about $200,000 a year. That does not include any service for tasers. The reason why is in 2021, we purchased our tasers outright, which is something that Axon no longer offers. If you want a taser, you have to be on a contract. Unfortunately, there's no competitor in this market for a taser. There's nobody even close for Axon. Our tasers that we purchased outright are nearing their end of life. That means that if we let our contract expire, our current contract expire, it is going to go up immediately from 200 to 232 if we did nothing. As soon as our tasers died, we would no longer have tasers. That 232 would just be for body cameras. We would also lose with that 232 after our contract expires our auto tagging. That's what our body cameras, when we're dispatched to a call, it automatically assigns our body camera to the call. We'd also lose our community request feature, which gives our community members a link that they can access on their own to submit evidence. And like I said, we would eventually have no tasers. We are requesting an increase of 131 to help us offset the cost of moving on a 10-year contract with Axon. And what this will get us, immediately we will be upgraded from our Taser 7s to our Taser 10s. Taser 7s, they're the single shot with probes. You have one shot at it. Our effective rate is less than 50%. The Taser 10 is a new technology that gives the officer 10 shots to get the job done. And so the effective rate is well above 90% for those agencies that are using it now. We also will get the Axon virtual reality training suite. Those are headsets that we can use to train our tasers. We'll continue to get service to our interview rooms. We will get unlimited storage, which is a huge cost. I mean, we're recording 24/7, 365 days a year in 4K quality on our cameras. And so it does take up a lot of storage. We'll get warranties on our hardware, and then we'll keep some of the services that we currently have. Are there any questions on this one?
I mean, I'm just curious, how often we use a taser in the field? Do you have an idea of that? I mean, you can always share it later too. I'm just curious.
I would say of our 56 uses of force, I would put in the fiscal year 25, I would estimate probably 10 of those were taser related. And I'll tell you this, that likely it would be higher if our officers had more confidence that in the winter months when people are wearing a lot of clothing that it's going to be effective. And so it'll be interesting to see what that transition makes once we go to these Taser 10s, if we get to go to these Taser 10s, because if we have more confidence in that, it's a great tool to stop a threat without having to
Mhm.
escalate further.
Oh, yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I talked a little bit about staffing. Just so you know, we recently increased one of our strategies for recruiting and staffing the police department. We increased our sign-on bonus from 5,000 to 7,500, and we authorized 40 hours of front-loaded leave for any laterals coming over to the police department. The reason we did that is because a lot of times people want to come over, but they leave that security of the leave that they've built up. How that has worked is May to October of 2024, we had 2 lateral hire recruitments. When we implemented these changes in November, the same time frame, we had a 550% increase in lateral hire recruitments. We went up to 13. So this has been working. And what that has resulted is we are currently staffed at 153 of 150 sworn positions. We have 5, we are authorized to go 5 above our 150. To sit here in front of you today and say we have 153 is so phenomenal and somewhere that we've not been in any recent history. And that's due to the work that you guys are doing to make sure that we're staying competitive. So I just very much appreciate that. 136 are operational. That means that we just have several going through the academy and trainings, but for the first time, we're well over where we can be.
Do we, it sounds like we are definitely doing better. We're not training everybody, getting everybody green. We're getting some laterals and so we've got some, some veterans that we're employing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, 13 in the last 6 months, and these are guys that are coming in and immediately making impacts. They're fantastic officers. We've had several of our new laterals are nominated for Employee of the Month and things like that. And so it's just, I can't tell you how helpful that is to have a guy get a job, come in 2 weeks later, he or she's on the road handling calls. It's fantastic.
Just for contrast, what does it cost to put somebody through the academy and then the training before they can, be.
Yeah, from a brand new to go through the academy and our entire FTO, it's typically the estimates in the last couple of years have been between $40,000 and $50,000.
Yeah, it saves a lot of money.
Yeah.
Get laterals. That's pretty good.
You had a question about grant funding. I just wanted you to know that Kevin Cottrell, our grant manager, he submitted 38 grant applications in 2024. 27 of those were approved for a 71% acceptance rate. What that meant for in funding is $5.95 million in total funding received to help supplement the programs that I mentioned that are helping drive down the crime in our city. We are anticipating, based on where he's at currently in fiscal year 26, somewhere in the ballpark of $8.5 million. He's just absolutely phenomenal. And then I can talk, there's a question on there about goals. I just wanted to make you aware, and this will be on the presentation, but we recently adopted a new strategic plan where we take some of the pillars of foundations of human success and make goals in each of those areas. Very specific data-driven goals that are intended to drive us to where we want to be. And that is continued reduction, continued relationships with the community, and get rid of that perception of high crime here. So I'd be happy to go over those with you, but if there's any questions, we'd be happy to take those.
I do have another question. Is there anything in our ordinances that is problematic for your department? Or, I mean, in other words, do we need to work on something to give you guys some tools to enforce something that is definitely a nuisance, it just isn't against our ordinance?
Yeah, I think we're in a pretty good place. I have Lieutenant Buss here with me that he runs our community policing division, and he would know our bureau. He would know better than anybody about any ordinances that we could leverage to help us do our policing. But Glenn, anything off the top of your head that?
We're currently working on one ordinance that would allow us to take action on school property. Obviously, normally on public street, we can issue citations or stop drivers educate them, but when they're on private property, it's a little bit different. And so that would allow us to help educate these younger drivers, keep them safe in the school parking lots. We've been in communication a little bit with legal as far as abatements, because that's a big issue and concern when we are trying to abate these problem properties. So as it stands right now, we're in a good place.
Okay. I was just, just one thing comes to mind is, we've had some complaints recently about our noise ordinance. And I've had them throughout the years, that our noise ordinance just really isn't serving our city very well. I didn't know if that was an issue or that, if that ever comes up.
Yeah, and you, Glenn, you're also specifically, are we talking about with like vehicle traffic and?
Well, certainly that and just people making a lot of noise, especially after 10 o'clock at night or whatever. They'll call in a complaint and the officer says, well, I didn't really violate the ordinance. So.
Yeah. Did you have any comments?
So obviously with parties and residential noise, that the ordinance is very specific. And we're able to take action on that. One thing that we are seeing is several years ago, the state went away from their safety inspection. So people have been modifying their vehicles and making them illegal. And the new trend is a lot of these vehicles have ways that they can change the noise from their muffler while they drive. They can make it backfire and sound like gunfire and then immediately change it back. And so when officers use the state code to issue a noise ordinance, or excuse me, a muffler violation, they program it, they make it legal, they go get it signed off, they go back out on the boulevard and very quickly they change it. So we're currently working with our officers, educating them and encouraging them to use the city noise ordinance for those, because it's not a suddenly, oh, I've corrected the problem, got my ticket signed off, and I can go and do it again the next weekend on the boulevard. So that's one of those training and education things. I've got a number of noise meters that we're issuing out to our officers to hopefully address that so that we can bring that noise level down.
Okay, thank you.
And I was wondering too, just to kind of back that up, especially I've already heard different complaints over the years about living downtown and the boulevard, of course. But as we're gonna have more and more residents downtown, people will move because it's too loud. Like, and honestly, I can hear it from my house too, but I'm a little bit farther away, so it's not quite as bad. But that's just something to start thinking about, is that the quality of life at the hotels too. We've had complaints from hotel residents, as well as now, we have a lot more people that are gonna be living downtown. And so I didn't know if there was like a way to do something like a quiet zone, or I don't know, something that could help, especially with the downtown. Not that the rest of the city doesn't deserve it too, but especially as we have more and more residents downtown.
Yeah, my advice on that action plan D is one enforcement per month, maybe do one per week. It seems like that just seems to persist. I don't know what it is, but just those cars racing up and down the road. And it's especially on a weekend. I think just about every Friday, Saturday night, 2 a.m, I hear that thing zipping up and down the road, whatever it is.
Well, I am in my neighborhood too, and I'm not on the boulevard.
Right, no, that's
So
right.
Yeah, it's everywhere, it's for sure, but there is a tradition of doing
I
it
think
downtown.
Steve doing it though, over my neighborhood.
Steve.
And to mention the once a month, we're talking big scale. So just the other day, we brought out 24 officers, we brought out drone pilots, dispatchers, we have representatives from 6 law enforcement agencies. During a 5-hour period, we made almost 240 traffic stops.
Wow.
Specifically related to racing and noise violations. So while that would be great to do every single weekend, that's a lot of resources, especially asking our partner law enforcement agencies. So that's the type of project we're talking about monthly. Weekly, we're still doing additional stuff.
Good.
Well, I think advertising,
predictable about when you
or
do it.
putting that out on
Exactly.
social media that they're doing that randomly help, just that randomness maybe, who knows?
Great. Any other questions?
I do have a couple questions, and just to follow up on, I had checked in with Mira about this too, that I had noticed a private security firm going around Leicester Park. And at first when I saw, I just kept seeing, you know, that car and it has a particular name on it. I was like, okay, so let me check in. So I checked in with Mary and she said that is us contracting with a private security firm that also patrols at the junction. So I was curious, does that come out of the police budget or how is that allocated? And how is it decided that we'll do the private security versus just, you know, our regular service?
Yeah, so that was one of the things when we talk about the grant funding that's available to us. Those are some of the things that we can use to supplement our officers who again are going on all of these calls for service. And so, yes, that's a cost that's related to the grant funding that we receive. And so, in terms of when and how we decide, if we think that we can use private partners to help us as force multipliers for officers, which in this case we certainly did, and they've had some impact already, then we'll do that. And so that happened to be in line with one of the grant requirements, and so we took advantage of it.
Great. And I don't know if it's appropriate to share publicly, but maybe you can just share it privately, like what their scope is as far as, is it just the junction in Leicester Park? Or are they in other places in the city?
Yeah, I'd be happy. In fact, it'd be better if I just get you, I can write up something and have it delivered to
Okay,
everyone.
this is residents asked. So residents have asked me like,
Yeah.
hey, who are those people? And they were just asking about it. And what is their scope? I know like obviously police officers have all this training, they have all this just de-escalation. I just don't know what their scope is as security. Do they just drive around if they see a problem, they call the police, or what is their scope and their behavior?
Yeah, it's certainly an extra set of eyes for us and reporting to the police to alert us to be a problem, but we certainly aren't expecting or instructing them to be involved in any kind of way that would match a police officer or rise to the level of law enforcement at all.
So do they, and they haven't approached me or anything, so I don't know, do they approach people or are they just watching?
Let me, can I get
Yeah, that'd be
something
great. Yeah, just because my neighbors asked me and I'm like, I don't know. Let me find out more.
Yeah,
information.
absolutely. I'll absolutely get something to everyone here, so
Thank you.
everyone has
I
that idea.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one, as it pertains to the budget, and I'm looking at field operations. The budget is going from 14 million to 21 million, so about a $7 million increase. Is that because of the compaction of some of the other accounts in here? Because, for example, uniform special events, there's no budget for that this year, so that's been pushed up into another area.
Correct. So prior to this year, we've had for every bureau and inside of every bureau, in some cases, every unit that we've had inside of bureaus. And that would be effective if I had managers in each of those bureaus and units managing their own budget, but they're not. And so for me, consolidating them for myself and the chief, yes, that's why that's going up to field operations.
Yeah, there was a bit of that, so thanks for that.
Yeah.
Confirmation.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
No more hot seat. Next up is Management Services Department, Lisa Stout.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today about management services departments and the budget and the changes and improvements we're trying to make. I'm actually really excited about some of the directions that we've had and that we're going. So just as a reminder, management services has the 3 interfund operations, fleet and facilities, information technology, and risk management. When I say interfund, that means their primary customer is the government. So the general fund, the water, the sewer. So they charge a fee to each of those operations to help themselves fund, the actual expenses that they're paying. We also have a new fund this year. It's the parking fund, and I will go over that with you in the presentation. And then the list of all of the general fund areas, the fiscal operations, comptroller, justice court, human resources, recorders, marketing, and then under fiscal operations, we also have the utility billing office. And that is accounted for in the water fund. A few years ago, when Mara Brown was the management services director, we worked on a mission statement. We are going to be revisiting that mission statement this year and doing some strategic planning. However, I just wanted to go over really the purpose and what we ask our employees to consider as they do their work. Pretty much anything that happens at the city, management services touches. So when we talk about being the hub of the wheel, they're really passing through us for a lot of things. So our goal is to be accurate, timely, helpful, customer service oriented for those entities. And then with utility billing, customer service focused on the citizens. And I think for the most part, everybody has problems, but I think for the most part, we've got a great team and they're doing really well. Just some of the accomplishments that have happened in fiscal year 29. We replaced several servers and nodes, and I can't tell you what that does. For the city, we had several servers that were really just getting old. And so we had saved up for a couple of years. Every year, the council has given us $220,000 for infrastructure upgrades. So we saved that money up for a couple of years and did a major upgrade, both to our infrastructure and to our firewalls this year. We also, just with some of the changes in looking at using different processes or doing things a little bit differently at the utility billing office. I'm really pleased with this statistic. Customer accounts that actually are shut off and have to be turned on, those have been reduced by about 65% over the year. And I think that's a real service to the citizens with some extra outreach. The other thing that we've done this year is eliminated the lockbox. We used to have a lockbox with Wells Fargo, so citizens would pay their utility bill. It would go to Oregon. Wells Fargo was our manager. They would process all of those checks for us. We eliminated that, and we're having staff do that in-house. That's helped us with keeping some people, active when they're at work as well, and saved about $15,000 by doing that. And I've classified these under the pillars of human success. I just sort of picked the categories. So education could apply here or not, but I felt like this was a transparency in education for citizens being having the interactive online books through ClearGov. And then we've implemented some trainings and additional AI training for employees. That's just a picture of the budget book, and we have about 20 years worth of financials and budgets online at the Budget Finance website. So if anyone is interested, needs some reading at night. Talking about some of the challenges that we have, workforce stability and turnover. And I've tried to just kind of list some things that we're doing or trying to do to address some of these challenges. I think the CIP for COLA and a merit plan each year will help with some of that work turnover, just staying competitive with wages. Increased workload and customer expectations. I think we can address a lot of these through being strategic about looking at our workforce. And I'll talk about a position that we've asked to add this next year to help with that. And looking at really very closely what each department division is doing and make sure we're focused where we need to focus. Cybersecurity, that's always a concern. It's interesting because the last couple of times we've done bond ratings, that they've been very interested in what we're doing for cybersecurity. And I think my impression is that we're doing a lot more than a lot of other municipalities. And then additionally, training to help employees understand that they really are the first line of defense. Technology change management. If you think of a 30-year career of an employee at Ogden City, they may have started in the 90s. And so, you know, we haven't ever really done intentional training with technology. So that change management and implementing new programs is really challenging sometimes. Long-term sustainability costs. I think the CIP and merit process can help with sustainability. We have a plan moving forward. I think that's something we need to evaluate consistently. Service levels versus resident expectations, and then replacement and deferred maintenance are another area where I think that we need to be thoughtful regarding sustainability. Talent development and retention. This really goes back to training and strategic staffing changes, preparing people so that when they're moved to a supervisory position or a management position, they're prepared to take on those roles. Regulatory and legislative changes. Those are always challenging. I don't know if anybody has paid much attention to the data privacy rules, but there's going to be a pretty big effort on the city's behalf to implement what they're requiring. They're being very patient, giving us a long runway, but it's going to be a hard lift. As far as turnover, you saw this last week in the closed session. I just wanted to share it again. Our turnover rate so far year to date in fiscal year 25 is just under 10%. And we learned from a graph that you do want some kind of a turnover. So I feel like that's a very reasonable turnover rate. So we have seen improvement.
Does that number include retirements or is it just, okay?
Yeah, that's everyone. As far as what is in the plan for the wage increases, we have used what we call what the Bureau of Labor Statistics calls the CPIW. And that is a wage CPI for clerical workers. And we felt like based on our workforce, it was a reasonable CPI to use. So that is what our merit is based on. Our COLA, not our merit. And then for the merit, public safety has STEP programs. So we're following the STEP program for their wages, and we're proposing a 1.5 merit increase for regular employees. This would be up to 1.5%. Each director has the ability to choose how they're going to implement it. Management services, we've chose to do a base. Anyone who gets above a 2 on their employee evaluation, and you can get from 0 to 3, would be able to have an increase. Any questions about?
So is the compensation budget, Lisa, is that number based on everybody that's employed?
Yep.
Earning that 1.5%
Yep.
merit bump?
Yes, so
There may be some actual savings in that.
there could be. So the way that management service is going to do it, if someone scores below the 2, they will not get the raise. So there would be savings. I think CED and Public Works are going to do a scale based on the score. And usually when they do that, we allow them to use up to what the council has budgeted. So we limit how much they can give to that what we've programmed.
So everybody may get something in those two areas, but not to exceed the 1.5 that was allocated for the
Yeah.
department. Okay.
Correct.
They said that we hear from the different groups for the public services on the competitiveness of the wages. They feel happy with how things are going. How do we know how employees are feeling, like overall, just general employees with the compensation?
Yeah, you know, I think my impression, and I know Justin Anderson has had some direct feedback on this, but my impression has been because they're getting more than the 4% merit, they're thrilled about a COLA because anyone topped out, and we don't really have that many who are topped out, will still get something. But they're getting, so I haven't really heard complaints directly from anyone.
Have we had any issue with turnover because of that, being competitive, other cities looking for employees or other non-government work that's, we're losing employees to that type of a thing?
So we did do a survey of other cities. I don't have it on me. We can certainly share that with you. We felt like what we were doing was very, very competitive compared to the other cities we surveyed against. That's really the only sense I have. I haven't heard anyone come in and quit because we're not doing more.
Okay.
Just real quick, I'm going to talk about the management services staffing changes that are proposed. We are asking to eliminate, it's a vacant position. It's a purchasing technician in the fiscal operations office. It's been vacant for a while. It was filled for a short time. We're thinking with some changes in that office, we can probably leave the staff at 3, which is what we have now, eliminate that position. With that elimination, we are asking to add a management analyst position to help look at processes, efficiencies, to help investigate things that could help us improve as a city. Someone that can be just kind of a force multiplier to help with projects that management services is currently working on. We are also, with that, we've made that budget neutral through reductions in some temporary money and this full-time position. So we're reducing the budget in justice court in their temporary positions and the recorder's office to match what they've actually been spending the last few years. And then we are adding a position. This is actually being transferred in from the police department. So they're eliminating a records clerk. I do think there was a budget impact on this position, but I don't think it was much. 15. And then we're centralizing the marketing division as a division under management services. So that's where that other position is coming from. We also have 2 reclassifications. The first one is the cultural services. Excuse me. These are the positions that are being transferred to help with consolidations. The first one is a facilities technician from Union Station. It's being transferred to facilities. So they will use a work order system, pull that building into that work order system, and that gives that technician the support of the whole facility. So if he doesn't have much to do one day, he can help that team. If he needs a lot more help one day, then he has the support of the team instead of being isolated by himself. The other position that we're asking to transfer is from ACE. It's a full-time position that's been doing marketing for the arts and events division, and it will be centralized under marketing as well. Just real quick, I have a lot of goals listed here. I just wanted to go through some of the things that are on our list as far as changes for this next year. Water is working to implement utility access and Tyler meters. This will give the ability to do real-time consumption. However, the meter transponder has to talk to our antenna and we're still working on that. So there will be some hiccups as we implement that, but that will be an exciting change.
What will that, excuse me, sorry, Lisa, what will that do for us? That communication between,
So I haven't really seen it, but my understanding is you can set notices. So if you're out of town and you end up with a leak, there's a notice that it could notify you.
okay, great.
That's one.
Yeah, well, but that's helpful. I had a resident, her water bill was like 10 times what her water bill normally is. And she had a leak in the crawl space under her house, and yeah, wondered if there was technology that was gonna help residents
That
with
technology's
that
a little
sort of
slow
thing.
here lately. I've been waiting for that for a while.
Yeah, well, there it is.
We've done a lot of work to improve those transponders and it's taken a few years, but I'm not sure, Justin, if you have the most recent number. I was hearing 80% of the city, maybe.
Yeah, just over 80%. And it changes too, in time of year, like when leaves come on, sometimes there's a few things that can interfere, so that might drop some numbers down, but a lot of it is, we are trying to change out some of the meters that have old transponders, so they're not as powerful on broadcasting. And that's really where we're at, but there's the meter itself is good, but the transponder that broadcasts is probably not broadcasting heavy enough, and so we're kind of stuck. And we want to get the full life of the meter use before we, because the meter's still working, it's just not broadcasting.
Communicating, yeah. Okay.
Some of the residents in my neighborhood have told me that they've been very pleased because water department called them and said, I think you got a leak.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they did. But the thing I think that is going to be really good for everybody when they get it working right is you can get on, you can see the live thing that's going on with your water account.
About 10-minute delay.
Yeah, that's way cool. You could do that. And you can even set, I think if you get that, we can even set alerts saying, hey, if this ever happens, this is my number and text me or whatever. That'll really help people that have those leaks that they don't know about for months.
Yeah.
The other big project we have been working on, we will continue to work on, and we appreciate the council's help with the change of the purchasing ordinance. It's trying to streamline some of those processes. Those policies and ordinances haven't been updated in a lot of years. And just, if you're spending an hour of employee time to do a $500 purchase, it's probably an inefficient system. So just looking for those efficiencies.
I was going to ask if the update in that ordinance maybe led to your ability to say, we don't need to fill this purchasing position, or was it a different sort of purchasing position?
I did ask if they felt like the workload was slower. We still have some process improvements we've got to make, but the increase in POs that do not require bidding, public buildings, we have someone dedicated to reviewing those bids, making sure they're there, the correct number, and all of that can just be automatically created as a PO because the system will do the budget check. So I do think that will help with that. I didn't really get any solid numbers. The implementation of the 311 customer service software and support system, that's going to be a big effort on the entire city's behalf. When you talk about, the career of someone who started in the 90s and the kind of technology we're asking them to use in the field now, it's challenging. It's challenging to change that. And so that's going to be a major push for the entire city to make that work correctly. We're trying to make more forms available online, both in Spanish and English. So we hope to see an increase in that this next year. Some tutorials for folks who do the purchasing process so that they're calling our purchasing staff less and can maybe look for that video or tutorial online. Just updating and creating standard operating procedures for Tyler cashiering and UB. We've implemented a new system in the last 5-6 years, but we've never really documented our process. So that takes a little time and effort to do that. HR is looking at adding a whole lot of trainings this next year, reviewing policies again, which probably haven't been reviewed in a number of years for employee policies. We are implementing a new employee evaluation software where we're hoping we can better customize the employee review to each position. A new training module for employees. And then we would like to create a kind of a boot camp for supervisors so that, our goal would be to see advancement from our employees. So making sure they're prepared when that opportunity comes. Something I'd really like to work on is technology governance. Police talked about they audited all of their softwares. When I talk about governance, that's what I'm talking about, that we're making decisions more as a city. We're looking at what's maybe not being used or underutilized and eliminating those should try and eliminate costs and also workload for our IT department. Using AI, that will be that's an ongoing effort. Oh, sorry. To use AI. So we do hope for some customized AIs over the next year to improve that. Physical security, cybersecurity changes. Some goals for the Justice Court, keeping their disposition rate high on their cases. Customer service, that's huge for the Justice Court. And then I just wanted to share this with you. This is kind of their caseload. So when we talk about traffic, those are moving citations. I looked up infractions because I wasn't real sure what that meant. But littering, if it's an alcohol related offense, but it's not a DUI, that would fall in there. So we have a very busy Justice Court, and I just wanted to point out the small claims number that they do. They do about 20% of the small claims in Utah. And when we look at what it costs us to operate the Justice Court and what we receive in revenue, if we did not have that small claims revenue, we would not be supporting the activities of the Justice Court. So I wanted to point out that it's more than just the tickets that help support our Justice Court. Oh, I have this in the wrong place. Just more goals. I will let you ask me if you have questions about them. I did want to just share the fleet replacement plan for fiscal year 26. We are programming 2.4 million. The total of this group adds up to about 2.3 million. These are estimated costs. This is just for planning purposes. I do think the departments are still working on prioritizing it, so it is possible that this could shift a little bit. But as of today, this is the planned equipment purchases in fleet. I included all of the facilities related CIPs. Some of these were reviewed last week with Chief Matthew, but fleet and facilities will be involved at some level on all of those projects. But as far as the critical project contingency, that's asking to be funded at 150,000 again. The ballistics and security solutions for facilities, we're asking for 350,000. And then the general facilities improvements, we're asking for 660,000. And the list below, the next generator to be replaced is the big one out here. It'll take us a couple of years to have enough funding to replace that. The Golden Hours roof, oh, that was funded last year. I'm sorry, I will need to get you an updated list. It looks like we've got a couple of things in here we were able to get done last year. But the fire alarm panels at Public Works and Public Safety, and maybe some new paint and carpet for the 8th floor in this building. Just real quick, I wanted to review the budget changes in non-departmental. We are asking for an additional 161,000 in facilities each year. The cost of operating our facilities goes up each year. A lot of it's related to wages, but cost of services also goes up each year. Active transportation, the transfer out of the general fund to the CIP fund, it would all be programmed into trails, roads, sidewalks. And when Justin Anderson goes over his CIPs, he'll show you the list of what's being funded. Risk management just had a very small increase. That's just a payment from the general fund to support insurance. In risk elections, we're having an election this year. I'm not sure if you guys were aware. This is just an estimate. We really won't know what the costs are until we actually know how many candidates we have. And so that's just an estimate at this point in time. Data processing went up. Every year we see an increase generally in IT costs. Most IT vendors will increase the contract by about 5% every year. So keeping those costs under control is challenging. And then I highlighted this one, the change in the Marshall White Center principal and interest was a decrease of 64,000. According to the debt schedule, that is funded by a transfer from BDO lease revenue and is paid for by BDO lease revenue. In full transparency, we wanted to review a change that was made to the fiscal year 25 budget and really what the impact is to the fiscal year 26 budget because of the change that was made mid-year. We asked the council to add 2 positions to the mayor's office, a deputy CAO and a chief executive assistant to create some more capacity on the 9th floor for decision-making and strategic management and follow-up and all those things that is challenging for 2 people managing 700 employees to do. With that, we asked to reduce several budgets in management services. A few years ago, we increased the management services professional and technical budgets in the comptroller's office and the management services admin by 45,000. So really, we're going to be using a lot of that to help support these positions. And I do think we'll be okay just based on history. If something comes up, an example of a contract that comes up that we've covered through those budgets is when we did a search for a new airport director. We just have to come to council for a request of one-time funding for those kind of things. And then the fiscal year cost, including those reductions in all of those departments, we still had to add 272,000 to fund those 2 new positions. So just in full disclosure, we wanted to make sure you were aware of that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for Lisa? I have some questions around COLA and all of that. That might be of a different discussion. I can't remember, we came up with the 2.97.
So, it's going to be really hard for us to sustain a 4% merit increase every year for public safety and add general employees on top of that. So to get complete parity, we didn't feel like it was a sustainable option. So we looked at how long it takes a police officer to progress through their career. And it was like 18, I don't remember.
16 years accounting.
How many?
12 years, I think.
It was
12.
12, yeah.
48%. They progress to their career.
Okay, so in their 25-year career, it takes to go through those 12 years, it's about 48% of their career. So we looked at the same thing for general employees. We are proposing a lower, but we were looking for that parity. And you know, you can have several different methods. I'm not saying that this is the perfect true method of doing this, but this is the method we chose to look at how long it took a 30-year employee to go through their career. So to get through their range, their salary range in 48% of that career, what would we need to do for a merit increase? And it was 2.24. We are proposing 1.5 in this budget, but that's how we looked at it. We were looking for that parity, not equality, parity. Does that help?
Yep, I couldn't remember what the numbers were, so, okay.
Would it be easier just to make it 3?
I know,
Or 2.25.
I'm sorry if I missed this. I think at the opening, you said you were gonna touch on parking and
Oh.
mobility.
Yes, I apologize. It's in my notes. So in the line item budget, there are just a couple of changes to the parking fund. We set it up and budgeted for the very first time this past year. And the only thing it had in it was a transfer from BEO of 600,000 to support parking operations. So in parking, we are proposing, there will be a debt payment now related to parking. It's tied to the debt we took on for the Wonder Block Towers. And so I just wanted to point that out to you, that that's a new debt that's come on this year. I could spend another hour talking to you about parking. So it's probably better to do it in a separate meeting, but with our timeline, we hope to be up and with a managed parking system in the fall. I'm thinking October, maybe, by the time we get through discussions with the council. And this is just a rough estimate on right now. And then the Wonder Block Towers will open in November. And we'd like to have everything in place absolutely by the time those open. We've talked about maybe having just a trial period. It would be really interesting for us to be able to watch, especially the employee behavior for the downtown area. And you know, that's been one of the major concerns of businesses is where their employees are going to be parking, and we're really unsure of how many employees in the downtown area are here at one time. So looking at that behavior, we'd like to start that as soon as we have the software available.
Is there a correlation between the requested budget and the pause on parking?
Yes.
Do you have a number?
Not off the top of my head. When we initially proposed a managed parking system, we looked at it was about a 10-year schedule of BDO lease revenue support. The first few years were 600,000 to do that. With the pause, we did not ask for additional BDO lease revenue this year for operational support because we still have that 600,000 from last year. So that's delayed a little bit, but also with what the feedback we're getting, and there will be changes into what it's going to cost. So we really need to recast that whole financial picture for you when we come back.
Okay, thanks.
I'm curious, and again, I don't know if you're the right person to ask about this, but so I guess I'm thinking if we start a trial, if we get the software up and running in other places, but the tower isn't open yet, I mean, how can that really tell us what the behavior will be?
Well, so the tower primarily will be leased, the thinking is, and again,
Right.
this is the plan until you see the behavior. It's hard to know for sure, but there will be 300 and something units over there. And so between the businesses and the visitors and the new visitors and the tenants in there, we don't expect there to be a lot of capacity. It might take a couple of years to get there, but we don't expect there to be a lot of capacity. So if we don't have the towers, if the reality is the business employees are parking on Electric Alley, we could still get that information if we start tracking where people are parking as soon as we get the software up. Does that make sense?
Not really, but I'm sure it makes sense. And yeah, it's not that you're being confusing. It's just, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess my concern is that, like, when we first did the plan, I didn't realize that we would be closing down all the parking behind the courthouse while we're doing construction. I mean, it wasn't a factor that I had thought of. So right now, I think that's causing a huge challenge. And then also at the hotel, like, it's really getting compressed. So I guess I'm just worried about the effect on the businesses if we put up the paid parking right now and we don't have the tower yet. Anyway, I'm just trying to figure out how we figure out who's the employees that are parking and who are the guests that are parking. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it will make more sense. I don't feel like I've run this past the ninth floor well enough to really
sure
talk, but I think it will make sense once we bring big picture, the big map of the downtown area.
Okay.
Why are we delayed so far on the big picture?
Well, we were behind to begin with, and then we put a pause on parking.
So has equipment been ordered and?
We've selected the software and we'd like to get equipment ordered. We kind of have a plan for how we can do that. Because when I talk about managed parking, we're talking about a managed parking area, but maybe only a portion of that is actually paid parking. So more to come.
They've been still having the community meetings too with the stakeholders.
Yeah.
I've been getting the minutes. I haven't been able to attend because it's usually when I have Board of Health meeting, but no, they've still been having those conversations.
And I'm still getting complaints from businesses that there's nowhere to.
Yeah,
So.
me too.
Well, this isn't going to magically make more spaces, but hopefully we can manage it a little better. Until the tower opens, it's challenging.
But if the tower's supposed to be open in September and we haven't November, that we could talk for hours.
Yes.
And by tower, you mean that first parking structure that
Yes.
under began construction, the first one to be built.
But we also have underutilized parking facilities now, and
Yeah. We do.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Any other things, Bryce? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
I love all of your optimization.
Next up,
my
is
plate.
Justin Anderson, it looks like you're gonna grab.
Are we planning to go all the way to 6 p.m. or after 6 p.m.?
Yes. Well, I don't know about that.
I just didn't know. I was waiting to eat because I didn't want to eat in front of people while they're presenting, but then I was like, well, if we're gonna keep it, we're just.
Well,
gonna
I mean,
keep
he's
going.
just starting. We're gonna be here another at least an hour.
For sure. No, I'm not complaining about it. I'm just trying to figure out when I should get food.
I'd say go for it.
Yeah. No offense. My
None
friends.
taken, actually. I think it's probably a smart move.
Just go. How you doing?
Maybe done before 7, all right?
Yeah, 6:45 maybe.
Right. Put your legs back underneath you again. Yeah, we'll wear them out on Saturday. Oh, yeah.
I don't know whose water this was. Must have been.
Or Point
Keep
to
it.
the loop every 2 hours, just go until the last person's going,
Oh, really?
or you can't go anymore.
Great.
So, I'd like to see them not such a loop. Hopefully this will be one, but maybe 2, 3, or 4 or 5.
If any of the administrative staff want to grab lunch or dinner, you can do that too. We've got enough for everybody.
What's in there today?
It's enchiladas.
All right.
Yeah. Wait for Marcia.
All right. Well, members of the council, thank you. It's always a privilege to be in front of you and to talk about the Public Services Department for me. So before you, I presented you with a coin that we had drawn up. And so if you read the back side of the coin, it has 4 things that surround it. One is quality, one says productivity, one says attitude, and one says safety. And so these are for exceptional service. And they're actually 2 different coins. Actually, they look very similar, but since we have 6 divisions within our department, on each coin, there are 3 individual divisions represented on that. So
All right, cool.
wanted you all to have that. So our Public Services Department, so our mission statement actually ties with those 4 key pillars. And so it says, guided by our pillars of quality, productivity, attitude, and safety, we create a vibrant, inviting, healthy, and well-maintained city for current and future generations. And so this is something that we talk about with our department and especially our workers so that it's on their mind. We also have a vision statement. This is more for maybe external customers, not necessarily for our internal staff, but Ogden City Public Services is committed to enhancing the lifestyle of the community we serve by providing sustainable and exceptional services in public works, water utility, parks and cemetery, recreation, engineering, and golf. We do get asked quite a bit sometimes when we say we're from public services, what is the Public Services Department? So people don't always know. So this is our answer. I'm kind of sad to see Steve Ziegler just walked out because our answer is we are the people who police and fire call when they need help, right? So we're kind of the 3rd leg of that safety stool. And sometimes we're not always recognized for that, but we rely on police and fire a lot, but they also rely on us to be able to take care of problems. So our Ogden City Public Services Department, we have 6 key divisions: recreation, public utilities, which is water utility, engineering. We have parks and cemetery. We have public works, which includes like streets, stormwater, sewer, solid waste, and snow plowing. And then we also have golf courses. And then we also have an administrative part that has an executive administrative assistant and a grant administrator. So our goals for FY26. So Public Services Department and the divisions we're working on key performance indicators and some strategic plans. So those are items that we are trying to define. And I'll give you an example, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. But like with refuse, particularly with recycling, like a key performance indicator is how are we doing in educating our residents so that on our recyclables, we are eliminating contaminated material in the recycle bin.
Mhm.
So that's an example of what that would be. And so we're working on these throughout the entire department in the different divisions. Okay, some of our major projects.
the first one I want to highlight is the Marshall White Center and getting that open. So, but, yeah, that was quite an accomplishment and things are going very well. So I know we've had over 200 memberships. I think we had 52 day passes just today. And I want to say we've had almost 90 people who have had memberships actually check in today too. So we are going to continue to be rolling out programming, as we go forward as well throughout the summer. So, but that took a lot of energy. It was quite the lift to, be able to get that open. And here's just some of the pictures of getting that to that point. Another major project that we have is our canyon water line replacement. So we have done a major connection, which we connected from basically the west side of Pine View Reservoir all the way to the dam. And so we have that portion of the project completed and we'll be continuing to move forward in the canyon as well. Here's some of those pictures. Another major project that we're involved with, and you just got done talking about, is the parking structure over at the Wonder Block. We are in charge of getting that built. And so we are on target to get the 8-story level parking structure built and open by the end of September. Now that we will still need to have some time to implement and get software and other things inside the structure so that it can be operational. But that's where we're at right now.
Can I just ask a question quickly?
You betcha.
I mean, it looks kind of complete from the outside, so just so people are aware, what else has to be done to make it ready?
So you can see in there, we still got to get everything painted. There's some where the entryways need to be completed. Also, there's a facade on the east side, and that's going up right now. If you go and look and kind of wonder like what's going on. So that there's a facade that'll be going on outside of that. There's many parts of it though that will actually be being built around it. So that's why you're not seeing windows necessarily on that side of it. But we have completed the structural build out of the 8 levels. Now it's getting it clean, getting it prepped for painting, other things like that. We also,
People are asking.
yeah, we're working hard and the contractor's doing a great job. We're also, as part of this project too, is over on the west side. There's also another parking component over there that's ours that we're working on. And that should be completed, from what I understand, is around February-ish is the time frame that's on schedule for. Though there still will be things being built above that, even though the parking structure will be completed. Another project that we're hoping to get underway later this year is our surf wave project on the Weaver River. So down below the kayak park, kind of by where the bike park is, we've got some funding through outdoor recreation. We've got a ramp grant, and we're going to be one of 3 or 4 places in the West to actually have a controlled surf wave installed, such that depending on the flow of the river, we can adjust the wave through a bladder system so that we can get optimal shreddability on the water. So that'll be fun. The picture up there is the one up in Bend, Oregon. So we basically are 90% design, and so we're just waiting for the green light with Union Pacific, which we expect very soon. Another item that we're working on, I'm sure you're all very anxious for, is the Lester Park upgrades. And so here's kind of a little sneak peek of a plan that we're wanting to bring back to the council and get feedback on, and then go out to the public one last time for their feedback. But you can see there's a playground, there's pickleball courts, there's inside running paths, there's play space areas, there's areas for games, and different courts. There's a pavilion, and also in the oval up there near the top, that we're going to propose like an ice rink there that can take place. So
Justin, I want to acknowledge everything you've got going on and this, but is there a timeline that I can relate to inquiries that come my way around? When are we going to hear some about Lester Park?
yeah, so we're actually going to be one of the things that I think we probably haven't got to yet is we've been focusing on getting the Marshall White Center open.
Right.
That was a heavy lift. So now that that's open, we'll be submitting a transmittal to the council to kind of meet and to get feedback. And we'll have, look to have a meeting in a work session that then we can get your feedback and then look to go out and meet with the public and get their feedback for the last.
Okay. Is there an estimated time you'll transmit that?
Yeah, so we're actually looking to probably transmit that next week.
Okay.
And so then we can get that scheduled. We'd like to actually start looking to build by the end of summer, maybe some of the items that we can phase in.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Again, here's just some other pictures right here. You can see kind of the playground area, summer on one side, winter on the other. And you can also see the game area. That's kind of between the library and the Golden Hour Center. So we also have some fence upgrades at the Mount Ogden Park.
No.
And so that old fence that was broken up in a lot of places is all being torn out. And what you will see is there'll be a steel post, 3x3 steel posts with some round steel railing going in, and that when it's finished will all be painted black. So that's ongoing right now. Some of also the CIPs too, intermixing in here. You'll have a CIP this year for 25th Street and D Avenue. And this is really in preparation for the 24th Street interchange. With the information we see from UDOT, and you'll see kind of the drawing of the new routed interchange off ramp. But what we received is about $5.5 million of WACOG funding to go through an upsized 25th Street going to the east, and then connecting that to D Avenue, which is on the south side of 24th Street, and connecting that all the way to 24th Street. So some of that's not on this picture, but you can see 25th Street where we'll connect in and kind of the width that UDOT's proposing to connect right there. Another project we have going on right now is a Valley Drive intersection CIP. We have some remaining funding and we're working on the intersection of 20th Street, Valley Drive, and right by Harrison Boulevard. So you may have noticed some cones and some vertical panels detouring people. But we also have another CIP where we're requesting some funding to go and the slide area right on the corner as you go around by the golf course where that road is kind of sloughed off. So we're looking to combine the work that we have going on right now and then also go in and fix that slide area, which looking back, I think that slide area has been there since the mid-90s and is kind of slowly just sat there. It hasn't sloughed off much, though we still keep seeing some sloughing. So
is there a plan to make something walkable for the apartments that are down there?
Yes, so though it will not happen with this project, but ultimately we continue to work towards having like a shared use path that will be built on the east side of the roadway that will connect down to those apartments. So
great if they could walk to the grocery store and the
yeah, so you can see the wear path of people walking through there, and so we've acknowledged that. Though the funding that we submitted, building the retaining walls and the things that we need to actually hold up the road and also get the barrier installed correctly are going to eat up most of the funding. Though we are preparing for the future to be able to come in and do that as a project.
Is there a layout of how that road is eventually going to be set up? You've gone up a little bit on the hillside in some places, and
Yes, yeah, we can get you a layout of that. I don't have that with me tonight, but essentially what's going to happen is it's going east off of Harrison up 20th Street. That's going to all remain the same. But if you're going westbound on 20th Street towards Harrison, that's going to change. And so what we're going to do is actually connect that into Valley Drive, where you can either go right on Valley Drive or take a left on Valley Drive and take you to the intersection. So we don't have a convergence of traffic all at the same location. So it just was not working and created a lot of confusion for drivers. Another project that we're working on too, I know the council has interest, is on a guardrail study. So we've hired LTAP, who is actually a local assistance program out of Utah State University, to go through and do a guardrail study for us. And so they're looking at all the guardrail we currently have and maybe all the guardrail that we should have in the city. Though the study is not quite complete, I have talked to them and they have told me the guardrail in Ogden City is very old and outdated, and we are going to need to update that. Everything's installed to a very old standard, and so to touch it, we're gonna have to update it all to current standards. So we're going to get that report and then prioritize and get a plan in place to where we can both go and replace existing guardrail and identify the areas that needs guardrail.
Would that include the between 12th Street and 9th Street on Monroe?
I don't know that yet.
Okay.
I've kind of let them, I wanted them to just recommend to us where they see that.
Okay.
We've had some discolored water calls recently, as you may have heard. But I have this map up here, wanted to share with you what the water department has done. So the little yellow dots are the calls that we've received. The darker dots are the hydrants flushed. And so we have actually flushed probably most of those hydrants multiple times. And so we continue to go back on an active program and flushing. And so this last week, I can report that we had 7 complaints for discolored water. None of them occurred after hours. And so we are continuing to flush and work through that. We're also looking to get a consultant on board that can analyze the hydraulics of our water system. And just so what we want to find out, is there a certain way we can flush water that does a better job at drawing out any turbidity or anything that might break loose in our city pipes. So any questions with that? Yes.
Just, has there been any questions raised about, this amount of flushing impacting our water supply? What would be a concern there?
So our tanks are full. So we continue to top the tanks off. And so it does come out at a little bit of a cost to flush. However, we need to make sure people receive the quality of water that they expect. And this is typical in older systems, that there is a set amount of water that you plan on that does get flushed out of the system for routine maintenance.
And that's just going downstream ultimately to the lake, right?
Yep. That's essentially where that goes.
Right.
Another item that you probably have interest in is, this is a chart of emergency water line leaks. So on the left-hand side of each fiscal year, you can see the after hours responses. In the middle column, you see the service line leaks. So these are service lines from the main to the meter. And then you can also see on the far right side the amount of mainline leaks that we have. So far this year, you can see we have 177 mainline leaks, and we've responded to 139 service laterals. And 108 of these have been after hours. So you can kind of see the idea is, as we continue to upgrade and replace lines, we want to see this slowly trend down. But depending on the time frame lines were installed in the city, we do see upticks that come and go with this. Any questions with it?
When you say after hours, what does that mean?
So anything on the weekends or after 5 p.m. to like 6 a.m.
Is there any reason you'd see a spike? There were some years where it was down around 68 after hours, 65 after hours. We got 108 this year.
Yep. Just so sometimes it's weather. So one of the things with this winter that we saw happen a lot is we didn't have a lot of snow cover. And so what would happen during the daytime, we'd actually see, heat and thawing levels take place without snow cover. But then at night, we'd see temperatures drop down below freezing. And so that freeze thaw cycle, happened a lot. And that, could be one, but also could just be age and certain times, certain lines break.
Okay.
So maybe I just heard this wrong. You kind of know by the age of the pipe that there might be breaks or leaks or something.
Mm-hmm.
In the future, do you think we can anticipate that through AI, or we're doing proactive?
So one of the things that we do in our master plan, and I appreciate you bringing this up, is so we do study the data quite a bit, and there's certain charts, and depending on the type of pipe, that have like the life cycle of the pipe. And so typically what we see is pipes go really well for about 40 years. After 40 years, they start downgrading. Now, I can't say why. We have some pipes in our city that are over 100 years old and seem to be doing relatively well without few breaks. We have some pipes that have hit 50, 60 years old and seem to have a lot of breaks. Some of that has to do with hydraulics and the functionality of the pipe. And so as the city got built out, maybe the pipes got installed at like a 4-inch. We have a lot of 4 and 6-inch pipes in our city. And so depending on the draws the city got built out, it pulls harder and the velocities go faster in certain areas of those pipes. And so that could be a determination where some of the other pipes that they don't have a higher velocity, it's more stable in how the water flows through it. They don't have as many fluctuations. So sometimes it also depends on, like right here is if contractors or other agencies hit our pipes. So this was a 16-inch pipe that got hit, and it got hit right on a bend, and that's not something you just can go down to Walmart and buy. And so it becomes very difficult in being able to get those reconnected properly. And so we have to have some of them special fabbed, and that's what you see in that bottom part of the picture is special welding taking place to get those on. And so we continually try to crunch numbers, and actually AI is a great tool to try to help us utilize and analyze where the breaks happen. But we have looked at and evaluated all of our pipes, put them in the type of pipe, the year that was installed to our best of our knowledge. And so we keep all that data. And I knew Councilmember Heyer, I was expecting this question from you, so I put this in here. So pipe maintenance. And so we have a goal of trying to replace 1.2% of our water lines each year. So that puts us on a little over an 80-year replacement cycle. So how are we doing? So in the last 5 years, we were about 4.5%. So we would like to, so that puts us behind. Typically, we want to see over 4.5 miles done each year. And so that's putting us a little bit behind, roughly about a mile behind to get to 1.2%. So, or about 7.5 blocks, just to put it in a different frame. But we continue, not all pipes are the same though. If you're replacing something with an 8-inch pipe, which is the new water standard, is the minimum is an 8-inch pipe main line, compared to maybe a 24 or a 36, you get a lot more bang for your buck replacing an 8-inch line than you do a bigger diameter transmission line. And so sometimes this is can be a little off. I know in 2021 where we had bonding, you can see we did a lot of projects that year and got them completed. And then you see it's kind of taper off there in 2023. But we were kind of going back in the cycle with a pretty big project down the canyon that's going to be over almost 8 miles of pipeline on that. Plus we're continuing to do replacements throughout the city.
Does the type of material, I mean, these 8-inch pipes,
Mhm.
I assume they're PVC or plastic of some kind.
So the newer pipes, most of the 8-inch pipes that we put in new are going to be PVC.
And
C900.
I assume, I mean, in areas up north of town where they got really acrid soil,
Mm-hmm.
it's just
corrosive
really
soils.
beating up the steel pipe. I think they're probably kind of impervious to that.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have any other issues that shorten their line?
Yeah, so there's pros and cons to every pipe material. So in areas that have high corrosiveness in the soil content, PVC is a great option. Though if somebody's going through drilling or with other pieces of equipment, if they hit those lines, they seem to split and break. And you're not just replacing a small section, you're replacing like 20 feet of it. So there's gives and takes with that. So we typically are using either PVC or ductile iron is what our replacement is. But typically on 8-inch pipes, we're using PVC.
Do they have a longer life unless the drill hits them?
Typically, they do, especially in corrosive soils, absolutely. One of the other things too is in fixing our discolored water complaints, you don't get the tuberculation or the bacteria buildup on the sides of them. And so you see less problems with discolored water as well. So that's one of the reasons why we like.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering if once we get, if that's gonna minimize the amount of problem we're gonna have going down the road, once we get a lot of flat pipe in.
Yeah, we actually expect to see a drop in discolored water, but we still have a lot of pipe to replace that way in our system.
Yeah.
So, another item to go over is kind of in our parks, our operational model change. And so the parks, and Monty's here with me tonight too, but we've strategically changed how parks operate, and we've divided what used to be 115 plus locations into 4 regions. So all the parks and facilities included our sports fields, they're all accounted for, and crews are mixed with full-time and seasonal employees, and combined in these different locations, they're responsible for irrigation, mowing, cleaning reservations, and garbage, chemical applications. And so we are seeing this change, that the staffing changes are leading to an enhanced service delivery. It's boosting some employee morale by being able to concentrate instead of being responsible citywide, concentrating on a certain area. And we are seeing a stronger connection between staff and maybe the community that they're in. The division now provides more proactive and consistent care, and the new structure supports meaningful career advancement opportunities and upward mobilities for those in there. So any questions with what we're doing with parks?
I think it's I had just a general question is, last year we made the change from temporary to full-time employees, and the number is, how did it go?
So far, so good. Again, that allowed us to do a couple things. It allowed us to change to try to be more proactive by doing these regions, but it also allows like some additional help to our forestry crew who they still are citywide. And then also it allowed us to have some additional help with our cemetery crew and our structural maintenance, which again, structural maintenance is citywide, and also the cemetery. It's nice to have full-time employees and have consistency with what we expect to see in our cemetery.
We were able to fill those positions then?
Yes, we are.
The part-time we were having a hard time filling.
Correct.
We were able to fill it full times.
Yeah, we are, though. Okay. And I'll talk about this in a little bit. We are having turnover in parks. I want to say they're around 16% turnover since, and I'll show you the numbers, since August of last year. So in fact, we did lose a very key individual, part of our crew leader, or one of our.
Did you say 16 or 60?
16% turnover is what we're experiencing with our parks.
I hear.
Other thing, volunteers groups. So I thought this was impressive. So the May 10th on my hometown. So we had like 1,700 volunteers and contributed over 6,200 hours. We impacted 93 properties from this volunteer work. The next days of service are June 28th, August 16th, and September 13th. And so this has been very impactful, I think, into our community. And that, again, those hours are just with that My Hometown event, and we continue to see volunteer efforts all throughout the city, all throughout the year.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Hometown thing? So organizations that want to participate in that, how do they arrange that with the city? They can.
Awesome. So we have a volunteer coordinator, Stacy Olson, and if we know, you give me their information, I will get them in contact with Stacy, and she can help coordinate that. Another project, and so this isn't one you actually saw in any of our CIPs, and that is because this project was fully funded by the state. This is replacing the Gramercy Avenue Bridge right there just by Lauren Farr Park. That bridge was very deficient, and so in August of this year, you will see this project, that bridge being removed and a new bridge being installed. So we're expecting that to be finished by October 2025. So it'll be pretty quick from August to October.
You didn't want to do that in July?
You know, somebody told me that probably wouldn't be a good idea. So I think it was Monty. So- But anyways, yeah, that'll be a good project. Again, this was, you know, about a $3 million project fully funded by the state. So, and they're taking
Let off that.
responsibility of doing it.
Would have to have the state fund that.
We approached them on the grant opportunity and we were selected. So that was done probably about 3 years ago. Other things we have going on in our department, sustainability. Again, this is a picture of the new EVs that we worked with Rocky Mountain Power. These are the high-end EVs that are the quick charge ones as well. So over there by Union Station, that was a great ribbon cutting event. Also things we have going on is with fleet with garbage trucks. So we have 5 on order that are being built that are in production. We are planning on ordering 4 more the following year. And so our goal is to get these changed so that we are constantly rotating about every year, 2 to 3 trucks so that we don't have a truck in service more than 5 years. What we see happening is once they get to about 5 years, that's the best time to be able to sell them, get a replacement cost on that through the selling of the vehicle. And after 5 years, the maintenance just starts going up higher.
Just what happened to those trucks that used to be partitioned and you could put the recycle in and do something and then put the regular waste in? We had those for a little while and I haven't seen them anymore.
I think that might be before my time. And so I haven't seen those actually we do have like one we call the Hino, which is a small one. We have guys go out that you'll see in our parks using that we'll dump in. But typically our trucks will, some days we haul garbage throughout the community every day, but we also have recycle routes.
But those trucks must not have worked very well. They must not have been all that.
So I know we're happy with the new ones that we have, and so they work well. Recycling. So we have actually 2 vendors that we haul our recycling to. We have Ogden Recycling and Wasatch Integrated, which we haul to 1 day a week. Typically that's on the south end of the city. So what we are seeing though is we are seeing an increase of garbage in our curbside programs, and we requested an audit of the materials from Ogden Recycling. And so once we get that audit complete, that'll be the basis of what we go out and do an educational program to our citizenry to help them understand what goes in the can, what doesn't go in the can, because that can get complicated.
Is Ogden Recycling the new version of?
It is, yep, out there off of Midland Drive. Any questions?
Questions that now we have the Ogden Recycling, we might go back to every week or instead of every other week.
So, and that's a question I think we can look at, but if getting a full can and going through once it, and having our recycle cans full, that's what we'd like to see. And actually most communities go every other week on the recycling.
No, and I'm not arguing, I just know people ask.
Yeah, so we do have an option, and I think it was you that brought that up so that people can get an extra recycling can if they are having an influx of those materials. So Weber County Transfer Station, so we are going to see a tipping fee increase on July 1st of 2025. It's going to go up about $2.25 per ton. So we're going to evaluate that, and that'll probably be something we'll come back in January on a mid-year fee increase. So
There was no increase last year, I might mention though.
yeah, correct. So we'll get an idea of where we're sitting with our tonnage and what that's costing us, but we're probably gonna have to do an increase on our refuse. So public services, number of employees. We have 176 full-time employees in public services. That's a little over a quarter of all full-time employees. Part-time employees, we have 54, and that's about a third of the part-time employees in the city. But our seasonal employees are 209, and that's almost 100%. what's in the city. And so we have 439 employees that we oversee in our public services department. Employee turnover since the implementation of the new ranges. So we haven't had any in golf and engineering, though we had some openings prior to the implementation. They have all since been filled, and we haven't had any turnover in engineering. So I have broken up our public works, and you can see that they've been broken up into streets, stormwater and sewer, and refuse. So that really is, public works is broken up into three, so you can more accurately see how we're doing there. But water, they've had, of course, we have voluntary and involuntary, so we've had a turnover rate of about 12% in water. Our streets, we've had a voluntary turnover rate of 11%. Our sewer crews were up to 22% since last year. Our refuse is just 6%. We've lost one employee there. Recreation, we've again lost one employee, and so that's at 8%. And then our parks, we have had no involuntary, but we have had 6 voluntary people leave, so that puts us at 16%. So typical is around 10%-ish. Desirable, we want to be below 10%, but it is concerning once we get over 15%. So it just gets hard to get replaced and to be able to deliver on services. And any questions there? Yes.
Justin, you mentioned that in parks, there was maybe one key individual that left and then some other dominoes fell to follow. Is that right?
So what I said is right now, since I've put out these numbers, we have had another key employee in parks that has submitted their resignation.
Okay.
So that is not included in these numbers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they'll actually go up to 7 voluntary.
I interpreted that wrong. I thought one person left and then a handful followed them out the door.
No.
Okay.
No. But yeah, so.
I was wondering if there's anything we could have done to keep them.
You know, we've tried. We smiled, Monty.
Thank you personally. I mean,
Monty.
you could have done.
Yeah. You know, and sometimes, and this is, I will say this, our employees get a lot of opportunities to learn and do a lot of things, right? It seems like we have a lot of employees, but we're a huge department. And so we learn a lot, and some of our cross training, we learn a lot of things. And so, you know, when they get made good offers and they're good employees, sometimes it's hard to match that. Employee feedback. I will say this, our department last year was completely ecstatic. I know that, and they're very appreciative of the COLAs that's been announced this year and being considered. I have had some employees ask me about the merit and the discrepancy between police and fire and general employees. And so I've talked with some about that, but overall, employees have been, I think, very excited about the proposed wages. In public services, so positions and reclass requests. So we don't have any new position requests in public services. We do have some reclasses. One would be in engineering. So we have one for the city surveyor to actually be the engineering director, and that would come at a cost of $10,000. So because public services, we do have a lot of employees. Typically, the deputy director for public services has also been a manager or director for one of the divisions as well. So they just kind of pull double duty. We've never had just a standalone deputy director. And so what we're looking to do is utilize the seniority of our city surveyor, who has over 30 years, to step up and to lead on the engineering. And we feel like we could reclass that at 10,000 without adding a new position. We also have 5 in public works. We have 5 positions. And what we've learned since the reclass last year is we don't have enough coverage on some things. And so these positions are all got classified due to the type of equipment that they are running. And what we found out is when we are down employees or people, they're on vacation or calling sick, we still have operations to run. And so we have employees who are not technically required to run certain pieces of equipment, needing to have them run equipment to be able to operate. And so that's where you're seeing these positions being requested to reclass so they can fulfill and run, instead of adding new positions, just having them cross-trained to take on the equipment. Then there's also one positions too with parks. That is just a title correction. There was no budget impact for that, but you can see the cost for the two reclass on the streets is about 4,600 combined, that's together, and then the three with the refuse to be about $6,100. Specific budget issues. This is one that we need to solve, and that is the pool at Lauren Farr. We continue to go in and fix leaks in the bottom of the pool, and it seems like for every leak that we fix, we get another. So we're working with 3 different companies to get some ideas of, is it possible to save this pool, or what we need to do to replace this pool? And so we work really hard, and every time we drain it and have to build a pool back due to a leak, it takes time to actually get it heated up and some other things. And that's where we ran into problems this weekend. We had to drain it, fix some leaks, and then we have to have the temperature be 76 degrees, and we weren't there on Monday. So it helped. We had to keep it closed until we get it above 76 degrees. Some of the other costs that we incur, and this was one of the changes, in that we've asked for a budget increase of about $40,000 in parks just for chemical. And these are to treat our turf areas. So an example of, you've probably seen this, and it's really all over, is that it seems like we have dandelions outbreak everywhere, and it's just not our parks. It's seems throughout the state, but we need the increased chemical to be able to treat those. And that goes all the way back from a lot of it, even from when we experienced drought conditions, caused some thinning and weed intrusion into our parks. And fertilizer just costs more money. Grant funding. So we've applied for quite a few grants, and these are some that we've been awarded since October 24. So you can see we have $1.3 million. So Catherine Wolf is our administers and is a new hire for the grant awards. And so you can see we've been very busy and active. One of the ones that we're excited about is, I'll say the first one is the Kaboom grant, and that is really to help do a new playground at JC Park. So it looks like we've been awarded. We haven't heard exactly the amount, but we think it's going to be in the range of about $80,000 to $150,000. So here's some other grant fundings that we've applied for that are pending. So you can see we've asked for some money at 4th Street Ballpark, Crossroads of the West. Also, we have grants out there for Lester Park too. Sidewalk repairs. So here's a map from January 2024 through May 2025. As you can see, trying to fit the whole city. We cluster when we go out and fix. We typically try to hit at least 10 different areas throughout the city during any given year, and fix as many areas that we can with the funding that we have available. So those are the areas that we've kind of done through our last replacement program. Here are the different areas that we have planned throughout the city in 2025 into 2026. So you can see there's quite a few little dots. There's a lot concentrated kind of in the east central area around Harrison Boulevard.
What do the colors mean?
Some of them deal with location areas. So a lot of them you'll see kind of grouped together, and that's kind of the quadrant or the area mapped out like that. Depending on the map, sometimes we have them on severity too, but that's not on this map. This kind of has more kind of clumped together of how we're going to have the contractor go about doing the work. Here are some of the some of the sidewalk replacements, and I'll show you before and afters. So again, this was Childs and 24th Street. You can see kind of makes a big difference of how the landscaping and everything looks. So again, this is on 32nd Street. fixing that. Oak Crest Drive. Again, this was on Adams Avenue. Mohawk Lane. Pretty good little chunk of concrete raised up there. This was on 29th Street. This was a segment of missing sidewalk. You could, and so what we've gone through here was we actually connected sidewalk, and this now connects all the way up 29th Street. Here's kind of some sidewalks repair. This is just kind of all the good after we've been at Orchard Park, how that area looks. And Monty and his crews, I think, has done a great job on the pavilions and in the playgrounds there. This is also just kind of a picture of Wildcat Lane. You can see the waterway was completely missing, so we just kept filling it in full of asphalt over and over and over again until we've been able to get there and redo the waterway. And lastly, just one of the things in talking about our KPIs and what we're trying to get to is there's a lot of things that happen that we respond to that are reactive when we get a water line break, or we have a sewer problem, or we get a pothole. But in being reactive, it does lead to longer term costs that are higher when they're unplanned, and the impacts on emergency repairs are more disruptive. And so when we design a sewer main, typically we consider a sewer main at capacity when you're 70 to 80% full. And so what that does is so that when you have any peak flows that hit, or like the Super Bowl flush, or anything, or infiltration or something that happens, that the line can handle it, that doesn't cause backups. And so like sewer mains, our staff needs capacity to react efficiently while reserving time to be proactive planning and maintenance. And so that's what we're trying to get to with our KPIs, is so that we can become less reactive and start doing things more proactive. And so when you're reactive, you experience downtime. And so if you can get to where you're always proactive, that downtime gets decreased. And so that's what we're working towards, is having, our goal is to allocate staff time to reactive work and reserve time for proactive activity so that we can eliminate that downtime. And so by doing that, we're looking at staffing optimization, our maintenance and priorities of our system. We're looking at infrastructure assessment tools, and also employee wellness and training. We want to make sure that we're not burning out employees as well, and we want to empower them with the tools that they need and the training to manage workloads effectively. So what needs to be done? Again, so to achieve that, we're establishing KPIs for that proactive work and reactive work allocation. We want to collaborate and prioritize funding for proactive programs. And we also want to develop a communication plan to align teams with this new vision. So any questions?
Any questions?
I do have a question.
Yes.
I can't remember if it was this presentation last year or another presentation that you did where you presented some of the community improvement projects. What is that something that comes at a future time that?
Yeah, so are you talking like with the CIPs, the capital improvement projects? Yeah, so we have a big laundry list of capital improvement projects, and I think I thought that we were going to talk about those next week.
Yeah, so we talked about just kind of did an overview of capital improvement projects on May 6th, earlier this month. And then, yeah, Justin touched on kind of a bunch of the bigger ones, but there will be another discussion next week for you to look into some of those and ask more questions about.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. So if I went through them all, we probably wouldn't be getting out of here anytime soon.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
All right, well. Proposed Schedule A changes. Council staff, I would assume that's Glenn. because he's getting up and everybody needs to go eat. Really,
Whole bunch of you already ate.
Mhm.
Just messed up the whole flow.
we mess it.
Performance indicators. Awesome. So that's what we're putting together.
So this will be pretty short, because this was an opportunity to talk about any Schedule A changes that there might be. If you recall, the Schedule A changes relate to the tentative budget, Schedule A1 changes relate to the final budget. We've been in discussions with administrative staff. We know there are some coming. We couldn't quite get those lined up to be Schedule A changes, so we're anticipating those to be Schedule A1 changes. So we'll have an opportunity next week to talk about those. So really, this would just be an opportunity for you all to talk through any Schedule A changes that you might want, or we can wait to talk next week with Schedule A1 changes. So the tentative budget is scheduled to be adopted next week. So we don't have a ton of time for the Schedule A changes, but this would be a chance for you all to talk about that. Anything you want to see changed right away versus with the final budget? If you want to see any changes? Or talk about it.
The one thing that I didn't really think about this until kind of hit me a little bit later on with the police department's presentation about the support that they provide the officers. He mentioned that other employees aren't able to have access to that at this point. I'm just curious what that number would look like to make that available. I think that is funded through grant funding at least it was the first couple of years.
Anymore.
But I don't think it is anymore, right? I think it's directly out of our budget. And so I'm just, again, it's just one of those things that as this meeting's going on, I've just thought about, we had a loss in that department this year and just wondering, and I don't think it was a service. It wasn't a police officer, but I just again, is that just what is the number on that? I'm just curious about that. Okay, to make that available to everybody. Oh,
no, I'm not answering.
Oh, okay.
oh, okay.
I just want to make sure that.
Got the answer. Hey, that's great.
She's running away.
Can't move in here without doing something.
Yeah, gonna get called on if you stand up.
I was just gonna say, so regular employees do have access to mental health services. It's just not that specialized one that the police department gets, just to make sure you understand that.
Yeah, through HR, they have that access. I'm just curious. I mean, it seems like it's more specialized to the things they may be dealing with, they're exposed to in their work. So yeah. Okay, if we can get an answer on that one. And probably not in time for the Schedule A, but if potentially Schedule A1 if there's enough interest on the council.
Yeah, we'll get some numbers for you.
Well, I've been doodling with one and I'll share it with the group and then I'll share it with each member of council too I'll mail it to you. And it has to do with our trails and it's certainly been top of mind the last month or so. I think we all understand that our trail systems are invaluable in our city and they're definitely an asset that draws people here. And we market our outdoor lifestyle. And we've got two organizations in town that have done a really nice job of maintaining our trails and working on our trails, and that's OTN and it's TFNU. OTN is a non-funded volunteer organization that's supported by the city, but it's not a line item budget. And TFNU is a nonprofit. Our trail use has grown. Our trail maintenance has not kept up. Those organizations are strained. And I'd like to suggest that we consider a position in parks that is a trails manager. And that trails manager, they're just, Ken and I took a ride, not even the length of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail from 12th to Buse. We stopped at the bench overlook and the number of places where there's really some severe degradation of the trails are tremendously apparent, where there were boards held in place by rebar or T-posts and then filled to support a trail. The boards are gone, the T-posts and the rebar are still standing in the trail. The trail has narrowed. You can see that people have left the trail and fallen down. some of the canyons between the overlook bench and the Christmas tree. And approaching the bench, Ken experienced a particular area. That was- No, I'm not saying exactly what happened, but it wasn't rider error. All right. And I experienced one the year before that resulted in several broken ribs. So anyway, the trail manager, in my mind, along with other things, would inventory our trails, both paved and unpaved within the city, prioritize and implement maintenance and safety projects, organize and coordinate volunteers. I understand that both TFNU and OTN have an inventory or a bank of volunteers. It's just kind of mobilizing and organizing them.
They may not have access to or ability to run some of the equipment.
Some of the equipment in TFNU does. Foster partnerships with landowners like the King family and Chris Peterson, the Forest Service, Weber State University, and others along the span of our trails. And in that instance, I'm just using the Bonneville shoreline. And to collaborate with other organizations like TFNU and the Weber Davis Mountain Biking Organization, the high school mountain bike teams, cross-country and trail running groups, pursue grant writing and fundraising for trail projects and improvement, lead trail expansion and new trail development efforts, educate trail users on topics such as proper dog etiquette, leashing and waste disposal, trail right-of-way practices, preventing erosion through responsible use. Why this matters, and again, I'll tie this back to the pillars that the mayor has put forth for us all to strive to live by. Safety for all trail users, education around stewardship and shared use, infrastructure that supports public health and connections to nature, community engagement through volunteerism, economic development linked to outdoor recreation. So I'll share this with each member of the council, and then we can have a conversation about your point of view around it all, and we'll see where it goes. But I really think that the city overall would benefit by somebody's attention directed to the facilities that are our trails that in some places have just begun to fall a little out of repair and out of sorts for use.
Dave, you took my spot on Wasatch Front Regional Council's active transportation.
I did.
Didn't you?
Yep.
Okay. Have they discussed some of this stuff? I mean, that seems like an excellent place to address the issues that you've just brought up.
So much of what, and Marcia can help me with this one, what they're trying to do is tie in a spine that will run basically the length of the Wasatch Front to our existing trails. So where is there opportunity to make connections from Ogden City? Our bicycle master plan is being taken into consideration, where Front Runner and OGX come into play, things like that, so that routes that kind of funnel traffic, active transportation traffic to this spine, not so much our used infrastructure for recreation, hiking, our river trail, not so much that. It's where can we tie our river trail into this spine?
Yeah.
Not so much what can we do to fix your river trail?
Well,
Or maintain them.
yeah,
Or
the
maintain
thing
it,
that came to mind as you were talking was there's a lot of trails that we claim, I guess, that really aren't in the city limits. It leaves the city, goes into the county, or at least up on my end, the Bonneville Shoreline Trail is not in city limits.
Yeah, then you're into Box Elder County, and when we.
Well, no, it's just into the.
Oh, it's in the county then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that's where TFNU can come in, because that used to be Weber Pathways, and they were
Right.
constrained to Weber County, and now they've jumped out of Weber County, but I would think that they still would attend to Weber.
Certainly what
County.
you bring up needs some attention and maybe some partnerships. So,
Yeah,
I'm not sure it's really all Ogden City's budget's responsibility, but certainly we can partner with people and address some of those things, because you're right. It's an important feature of we market these things.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll forward my proposal to everybody and then can talk a little bit
I
further.
apologize, they came late. Would that be in the Parks Department, or where would it land?
Yeah, in Parks. Yep. Parks has, I think that realm of expertise falls. But again, I'm open to conversation on all of that. Okay, thank you.
The additional discussion?
where we break for the open house. Okay. We gotta move some tables.
All right, anything else to talk about? We have an updated schedule for both yet.
I do. I'll send that out. We met today to go over some things, so I'll send out a follow-up email the next day or two, and I'll include the most recent and updated itinerary.
Great.
I didn't hear your whole question.
Oh. schedule.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Take notes. All right, any other questions, concerns before we take a 10-minute break to talk about budgets?
Wow.
All right,
I think so.
we're done for the turn.